All right, welcome to Fanatics Football, a football segment of the Fantasy Fanatics Podcast. I'm your host once again, James. We got a bunch of guys here. We're doing our mock draft 2.0 half point PPR scoring. I'll just introduce everyone. We got Mete here once again. What's up, man? We got Nate back with us. What's up, Nate?
So,
Terry's back. What's up, Terry?
Uh,
And we got Michael back from the Ball Podcast. How you doing, bro?
Yo, what up?
All right, so we all hopped into a mock draft. This time we all drafted side by side, so all 5 picks in a row. And we just drafted all of our teams. So we're just going to go through the mock draft. We're just going to start from round 1. I'll get to all the picks, and then we'll sort of, I guess, at the end, take a look at all of our teams and I guess just talk about how we like them. So we'll start with round 1. I went from the 3rd position. So the 2 players taken in front of me were Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook. I took Alvin Kamara. I just like the situation there. I know I said that I preferred Derrick Henry over him in drafts, but once they made that switch to Jameis Winston at quarterback, I just feel better about Alvin Kamara. He's going to get rush attempts. He's going to get catches in the backfield. So I like his potential a little bit more. Right after me, Nate, you took Derrick Henry. I guess just explain your pick.
so I was going to take Nick Chubb, but I decided, well, I guess I'll just be different and take Derrick Henry this time around.
All right. That pretty much explains itself, being a Browns fan. Mike, I'll get to you. You took Zeke.
Yeah, I'm a Cowboys fan, but I also thought he was the best running back on the board, just because he's going to get the touchdown looks and then he's going to get a lot of usage.
Are you seeing a bounce back from last year? Because I know you had a down year.
If he doesn't, then he should just quit football. But I can't see him being bad again.
All right. Yeah, that's it's a tough thing. I don't know. I personally just can't invest in him over Aaron Jones, but as a Cowboys fan, you probably have more insight to the team. So if you think he's going to bounce back, I think he's going to be a good pick. Terry, I'll get to you. You took Aaron Jones. I guess just walk through your pick.
I just like Aaron Jones over a couple of other guys on the board. Honestly, you can't go wrong with your first round pick.
Yeah, I think all these running backs are pretty close to each other. Mete, you took Saquon Barkley. You decided to take him over guys like Chubb and Taylor and others. I guess what was going through your mind?
Yeah, so I was actually looking at Aaron Jones. Didn't fall to me. So after that, the thing with Chubb and Taylor, they're both great backs, but I'm just scared that Chubb has Kareem Hunt behind him. Yeah, and Jonathan Taylor has Marlon Mack, even Naeem Hines. So I just went for the clear-cut guy with Barkley.
Yeah, it seemed like pretty straightforward. The 5 of us went side by side. We all took running back, so looking pretty similar so far. And then after us, Nick Chubb went Jonathan Taylor, and then Tyreek Hill, Najee Harris, and Devontae Adams. Now we're on to round 2. Stephon Diggs went Patrick Mahomes, Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf, and Travis Kelce. Then Mete, you were up on the board. You had the 6th pick, and you took Austin Eckler. So just walk us through that.
Yeah, again, so another clear-cut guy, I think. He should be the number 1 guy for sure in Los Angeles. And he's also one of the best pass catchers, I'd say, for a running back. So I think, yeah, he was a good pick here.
Yeah, I mean, with the volatility with Saquon, not being healthy sometimes, you need a solid guy like Eckler behind him. It seemed like a pretty good pick there. And then Terry, just getting to you, you took Antonio Gibson right after. I guess talk about that pick.
Honestly, just looking for a running back that falls into my lap, and Gibson was that guy. If it wasn't Eckler, I would have took, or if it wasn't Eckler, Robinson, I would have took probably Mixon next.
Yeah, and speaking of Robinson, Mike, that's where you went. I guess talk to us about that pick.
Yeah, so I went Allen Robinson in the mid-second round just because Andy Dalton's not going to be the starter for too long, and he's finally going to be able to play with a QB1. So I can't Allen Robinson hasn't been had one good quarterback his whole career. So once he has that one good quarterback, he should be able to go off because the numbers he's been doing with the bad quarterback is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, 1,500 yards with Blake Bortles is nothing to sneeze at. So
Exactly.
yeah, it is a good pick. He's definitely a wide receiver one in fantasy. Nate, you went next. You took Joe Mixon. I guess talk to us about that.
So I guess I just felt like he was kind of the highest available running back. I normally like to take multiple running backs back to back. So I decided to go with Joe Mixon.
Yeah, he's a great pick. He had that unhealthy season last year. Hopefully he should be able to bounce back for you. And then I was up at the 10th pick, and DeAndre Hopkins pretty much just fell into my lap. It was pretty much a no-brainer for me. I mean, he's gotten over 150 targets the last 6 straight seasons, so he's getting targeted regardless. He's always been a top 5 receiver almost every season, so that was pretty much a must-have for me. And then right after that, Keenan Allen went, Justin Jefferson went, and then we moved to round 3, where AJ Brown went off the board, then Darren Waller. Then I was up at the 3rd pick. I decided to go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire to be my second running back. Yeah, he just seems like a guy that should have a breakout season. Last year, he was sort of capped by the fact that Kansas City wasn't running the ball as well as they should, and that Le'Veon Bell also stepped into that backfield, but they should do a better job of running the ball this year. So, I mean, having him behind Kamara seems like a good thing for me, so I went there. Nate, moving to you at the 4th pick, you took Terry McLaurin, so just talk to us about that.
So I think last time I ended up drafting 3 running backs in a row, but I decided to go with a wide receiver this time. So I ended up going with Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, just break it up a little bit, spread the board for your team. Definitely makes sense. Mike, you took James Robinson with the next pick. So you have the Robinson boys on your team.
Yeah, I like the last name. It turns me on a little bit. Joking. So James Robinson, he just had a good year last year. So with Etienne out for the whole season, he's going to be the number 1 running back again. So it's harder to find a good running backs than it is wide receivers. So I went with a running back again, and he was the best on the board.
Yeah, I mean, you're pairing him with Zeke, so you're definitely okay there.
Yeah.
You have a wide receiver, so you should be fine also. Terry, you went George Kittle next pick. I guess talk to us about that.
You just don't want to overcommit on one position just due to the fact that I picked 2 running backs in the first 2 rounds. Might as well pick either a wide or a tight end. Saw Kittle, fell into my lap. Might as well pick him up.
Yeah, he's one of the 3 best tight ends in the league. No question about that. Solid pick there. Then Mete, you were up at number 7. You grabbed Mike Evans. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, like Terry said, I don't want to overcommit to a position, and going back-to-back running back, I wanted to go for a wide receiver, and it was up to Lamb or Mike Evans for me. And honestly, this draft, I tried to be unbiased, so I think Evans was the better pick here, as he's a solid wide receiver who he's been putting up 1,000 yards almost every season. So yeah.
All right, and after you, it looks like Chris Carson went off the board, David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, and then CeeDee Lamb. And then we moved to round 4, where Josh Allen, Kyle Pitts, Darrell Henderson went off the board, Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper right before you, Mete, and then you decided to take Julio Jones. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, honestly, I like this pick better than my last one. Yahoo's rankings are kind of weird. I definitely would have Jones over Evans, as there's a couple weapons in Tampa Bay where Evans could be having a rough week if his matchup isn't the greatest. But let's talk about Julio for a second. I mean, yeah, he's one of the best wide receivers of our generation, like I said before. And for me to get him at round 4, I feel like it's a steal.
Yeah, I feel like he's sort of fallen quite a bit just because of the whole AJ Brown talk with him. But I mean, if they can spread the ball well enough, they definitely should be getting solid work. Then right after you, Terry, you took Tyler Lockett. I guess talk to us about that.
Honestly, tight end, running back 1 and 2 were filled up. Might as well get my first wideout off the board. Lockett was the first guy available, I believe. So I basically took him.
I guess any thoughts on Tyler Lockett, like the player specifically?
The player specifically, I know DK's the future of that Seattle Seahawks wideout core, so can't really do anything about that. And this is the NFL. It's a young man's league. So Lockett's kind of eventually going to get pushed out. Wilson, he's still going to target Lockett just because they had that connection for how many years. So it's a good pick over guys like Cooper Kupp, who are kind of injury prone, or even, I wouldn't say DJ Moore yet, because we don't know what Sam Darnold's going to do over there. So honestly, he just looked like the safer pick between the three of them.
Yeah, I think if you're tied between Lockett and Kupp, you got to sort of find that tiebreaker. And yeah, definitely Lockett has been the healthier guy. So I think that you made the right pick between the two. But Mike, let me get to you. You took Damian Harris. Just talk to us about the pick.
So like I said earlier, it's harder to find good running backs. So I grabbed another running back just in case one of my two go down. And since we have that flex position, if he's got a good matchup, I'll be able to play him in the flex. Damian Harris is a clear-cut running back 1 for the Patriots. New and improved offense now that Cam's gone. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. He had a good end to the last season, so I can't see him getting worse, but he can only get better at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you take Cam out of the red zone there. If they need to run the ball, they're going to go to Harris and, not the quarterback. So I think that improves his value a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then Nate, you ended up taking Cooper Kupp. I guess it must have been the highest available receiver.
Yeah, pretty much. I actually wanted to get, I think, running back either this or next round, but I felt like the next available running backs were too far at the time, so I just decided to go with wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't help it, you don't want to reach too far. You just sort of take what the draft gives you and sort of plan your strategy around that. I think you ended up making the right pick. I mean, Kupp should be solid. He's got Matt Stafford in there throwing him the ball, so he should get a lot more targets this year. I was at pick number 10. I took Gus Edwards. I don't really need to say much about that. Of course, J.K. Dobbins went down with an injury. Edwards got a lot of work regardless of whether Dobbins was in there or not. So he's going to be getting the majority of the carries there. Obviously, he doesn't catch a lot in the backfield, but I don't really need him to do that as my running back 3. He'll either play in the flex spot, like Mike said, or I can just have him on the bench for good matchups. So I'm not too worried there. And then right after that, DJ Moore went off the board, Robert Woods. And then we moved to round 5 where DeAndre Swift and Myles Gaskin went off the board. And then I was up again at number 3. I took Deontay Johnson, wide receiver from Pittsburgh. I mean, he was averaging like around 10 targets a game last year. I know he had problems with drops, but if you're getting that large of a target share on a team and you're dropping that many balls, it's only uphill from there. I think that he's definitely going to be a solid wide receiver for that team. And he's not even my wide receiver 1. He's my wide receiver 2. So I don't need to worry about, I guess, his production having to go through the roof every week. If I get that solid wide receiver 2 production, I think I'm okay with that. So I really like that pick. Number 4, Nate, you took Lamar Jackson in round 5. I guess just talk to us about that.
Yeah. So I guess normally you wouldn't really want to draft a quarterback this early, but he was just available at the time and I wasn't really too sure about picking anyone else, so I just went with him.
Yeah, I mean, you're still getting the production from him, whether you feel like you took him too early or not. And I mean, if he did fall to you, that's a good thing. Mike, you went quarterback also. You took Kyler Murray. I guess just talk to us about that.
So I actually wanted to grab Lamar Jackson, but he just went right before me. So in fantasy football, I think it's important to get a quarterback that can run the ball as well. And Kyle Murray is basically the second best after Lamar Jackson when it comes to running with the football. So I grabbed Kyle because if the receivers aren't getting kind of open, things aren't happening on offense, at least Kyle Murray, you can scramble and grab a couple of yards and a couple of points that way.
Yeah, I guess most of those top 10 quarterbacks, they got to have some rushing upside. I know maybe with guys like Mahomes, most of it comes from the passing. Same with guys like Aaron Rodgers, but at least they do have their feet. They're able to move out of the pocket and gain extra yards. That's always valuable for fantasy. Terry, you went next. You took Adam Thielen. I guess just talk to us about that.
If he was best available for wideout when I looked at running back, honestly, next available was Mike Davis and I believe Raheem Mostert. And they were kind of like 10, 12 picks behind Thielen. So for their ADP. So I was like, all right, try not to reach for guys later down in the draft. Try to get guys that fall into your lap. That's what I did with Thielen, and I like him better compared to the other wideouts on the board at the time.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta let the guys fall to you if you can. Obviously, reach for a guy that you like, but like you said, if you see guys like 10 or more spots down, a lot of times you should be able to get them coming back the next round. So I think you made a solid pick from where you were drafting. And then Mete, I'll get to you. Pick number 7 in the 5th round. You took Mark Andrews. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so it's kind of tough having a later round tight end. So I kind of wanted to target one here. And I mean, I feel like Mark Andrews has been a top 5 tight end for the last couple of years, and that's with Lamar not being the greatest thrower. With Lamar being in his, I want to say 4th or 5th season now, I think he's gonna get even better as a thrower, and that helps out Andrews, especially when he's the main target in the Baltimore Ravens passing offense.
Yeah, he's pretty much the guy that the offense is funneling through when it comes to passing. So, I mean, if you're getting him like round 5, you pretty much rounded out most of your running backs and wide receivers already. So it's not like you're really reaching for him. You can sort of add him and feel good about it. Right after you, T. Higgins went, Tom Brady went, Chase Claypool, Cortland Sutton, and Trey Sermon. Then we moved to round 6, where Javonte Williams, Jamar Chase, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Raheem Mostert, Mike Davis went off the board to you, Mete. So talk to us about that pick.
Yeah, so for this pick, actually, I just remember you saying, oh, the running backs are getting kind of dry, and I only had 2 running backs at the time. So honestly, you don't want to draft a running back past round like 10, I'd say, as after that, it's literally just all backups. So yeah, I needed a 3rd running back, Mike Davis. He had a really good year for the Panthers, especially filling in for McCaffrey when he was hurt. And yeah, I think he can have a great year this season.
Yeah, like you said, especially for your 3rd running back, you want to be pretty sure about them in case one of your top 2 guys goes down or they have a bye week. Then you have that guy that you can just slot in there. So really solid pick. Yeah, I think he also fell to you, so that was good. Terry, you went next at pick 7. You took Chase Edmonds. I guess talk to us about that.
So as you two were having that conversation, I got quiet because I saw Mike Davis. And then Mete gone and picked him up. So I just took the next available guy, Chase Edmonds. With Edmonds in the offense in Arizona, I feel like he can hold off James Conner just due to the fact that he's less injury prone compared to him. And he has more chemistry with the organization compared to Conner, as he is a new or a free agency ad. And I just like him better than Conner and any of the other running backs on the board.
Yeah, it looks like they want to name him the starter as well, according to what I've been hearing. So you should be okay there with that pick. Mike, you went next. You took OBJ. I guess talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I just needed to fix up my wide receiver core now that my running backs and my QB was kind of set. So after Allen Robinson, I needed another wide receiver. So Odell Beckham, he missed all of last year. You'd think he'd be healthy and ready to go for the beginning of the season. And he needs a bounce back year. Like Cleveland was really good without him. And people are saying, oh, he's the problem. He's the problem. So if he comes out and plays the way he usually did or when he was in New York, he can shut people up and hopefully be back to his old self. So I took the gamble with Odell in the next pick.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that, you know, if he goes back to his old self, then you don't need to worry about having waited on wide receiver. He'll just end up being that guy for you that sort of just fills in your starting lineup. So that's a pretty solid pick. Nate, you went next. You took tight end. You took TJ Hawkinson. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, I decided to start working on tight ends, I guess, before they get kind of thin, since tight ends usually ends up getting a little bit thin later in the draft. So that's why I went with Hawkinson.
Yeah, Hawkinson is part of that famous big 6 tight ends going early in the draft. So you probably want to get a hold of him before all those tight ends went off the board. I was looking at the draft with my next pick. I went right after at number 10. I took Brandon Ayuk. I don't know, out of all the wide receivers still there, I just felt like, this is the guy that, he's the wide receiver one for his team. Obviously, Kittle's the main target there, but assuming Trey Lance starts sooner rather than later, I mean, I feel like there's going to be a lot more deep ball throws. And I mean, Ayuk is going to be spread all around the field. He'll get a lot of looks. I'm hoping, minimum 6 to 8 targets a game. If you give this guy some work, he's really talented. He's one of the more talented receivers coming out of his draft year. They just need to get the ball in his hands and he can create. So he's my wide receiver 3. I can throw him in the flex or I can just play him off the bench. So I really liked him at that spot. Then Antonio Brown went off the board after me, Logan Thomas, and then we moved to round 7, where Justin Herbert went off the board, and then Aaron Rodgers. So a run of quarterbacks there. Then I was up, and Kareem Hunt just fell into my lap at the 3rd pick of round 7. I'm getting a guy that, he can be a good flex option, and I'm getting him all the way in the 7th round when he should have gone around the 5th or 6th round. So I was happy about that. So I took him. Nate, you took Jerry Jeudy right after. I guess talk to us about that pick.
Yeah, so I guess I just wanted to work on some more wide receivers before they also start getting a little bit thin as well. So I just decided to go with Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, it seems like a really solid pick. He's one of those guys heading into his 2nd year. Hopefully he can have a breakout season. Mike, you went next. You took Juju Smith-Schuster. Talk to us about that.
So I actually wanted to grab Jeudy. I think he has the better upside compared to Juju. But since I've already grabbed my running back core and now my wide receiver 2 that I grabbed, I'm just looking for kind of a backup and some depth. So I thought Juju was the best available option when it comes to wide receivers. He's got a lot of upside. Obviously, a lot to share with Claypool, and hopefully Ben Roethlisberger's arm can stay intact. But I like Juju's upside, so I grabbed Juju. He has to prove a lot of people wrong this year just because of all the dancing from the logos last year.
Yeah, I don't blame him one bit. He's definitely got a lot to prove. Claypool as well. He's been getting clowned a lot for that too. So both of them should have a lot of motivation heading into next season. But Terry, I'll get to you next. You were the next pick. You took Ronald Jones there. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so right now I'm just thinking, let me just start filling up the bench with a couple of talented pieces. So in my mind, I was thinking, who do I choose from? The guy with the DUI, or do I deal with the guy that has the split backfield? So I just chose the guy with the split backfield and Ronald Jones the 2nd instead of dealing with Melvin Gordon the 3rd. So just choose the guy that has less of a outside problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, you probably chose the right split backfield because the other one's pretty split as well. You got Javonte Williams in there. So, yeah, I guess you're sort of looking at the guy, like you said, that's going to be on the field. And if anything happens with Melvin Gordon, at least you got the right guy. Mete, I'll get to you. You took Jalen Hurts as your quarterback. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I wanted to try a different strategy where I'm not drafting Dak. So I wanted to get a quarterback as my last pick for my starters. And since you have 7 starters at round 7, he becomes your last pick for a starter. And I feel like I kind of messed up. I think I waited too long for a quarterback, as earlier in this round, guys like Rodgers and Herbert went, and I would have been way more comfortable with them. But Hurts showed great potential last season. He can scramble, he can throw. Just the only problem is that Philadelphia, their weapons aren't the greatest, I think. And I don't know. I feel like his sample size was too small. I feel like he only started like 4 games or something. So yeah, it's definitely a risky pick for sure.
Yeah, you probably got to follow it up with a backup quarterback. So I guess as we get through the rounds, we'll definitely have to see about that. Right after you, we had Robbie Anderson off the board. Then Melvin Gordon went off the board. We talked about Robert Tonyan, Leonard Fournette, and then James Conner. So that was the end of round 7. Moved to round 8. We had Michael Carter go off the board. LA Rams defense, AJ Dillon, Brandon Cooks, and Deebo Samuel. And then Mete, you went with Devontae Smith, I guess, to pair him up with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. At this point, I'm just drafting my bench now, and it's just who I think is best available. And Devontae Smith, although we don't know how he'll turn out, due to him being a rookie and having great upside, I just wanted to roll the dice and pick him here.
Yeah, it looks like he's shaping into that wide receiver one in Philly. So if he gets some chemistry with Jalen Hurts, I guess it could probably turn into something good for you. And then right after that, Terry, you were next. You took Corey Davis. Talk to us about that pick.
Had the same mindset as Mete in this situation, just drafting guys for the bench, choosing best available guys. Kind of grateful that Smith and Deebo Samuels went off before me, just to make it a little bit easier. As with my picking Corey Davis, a former top 5 pick in the first round. I mean, he has to turn it around eventually, and the Jets are the Jets. So hopefully this is the place that he gets that breakout year.
The Jets are the Jets. Is that what you said when you put them as 0-6 in their division?
Yeah, the Jets are the Jets.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you. Corey Davis was a good pick. It looks like they really want to use him. They targeted him a lot in the preseason. So hopefully that translates into the regular season. And then you got a steal pick right there. Mike, I'll get to you. You took Dallas Goedert as your tight end.
Yeah, so that's that last position I needed was a tight end, and I had a few options that I liked. I wanted Logan Thomas in the earlier rounds, but he was taken, so I grabbed Dallas Goedert. Realistically, he's usually pretty healthy. He's got a new QB. He's not getting thrown to by Carson Wentz, so he's going to be open. He's a really good catcher, good blocker. He's everything you would want in a tight end, and relatively healthy. And he also took Zach Ertz out of a job, basically. So that's saying something.
Well, I don't think Zach Ertz is fully out of a job yet. It looks like he is going to be there to start the season.
He is going to be there, but he's definitely not going to be getting the touches as he once was.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. He is on the older side as well. He's getting up there in age. I know he did sort of apologize to management about wanting out. So I think he is going to start buying in. But like you said, Goddard's the younger guy. He can pretty much do everything on the field. So it definitely makes sense that you took him where you took him. And then Nate, getting to you, you took Tyler Higbee. I guess talk to us about that pick.
Yeah, so I guess I wanted to have 2 good tight ends, which I guess might not have been necessary, but yeah, I just decided to go with Tyler Higbee.
Yeah, Tyler Higbee was sort of the guy I was looking at tight end because I was up for my next pick. I was either going to go tight end or quarterback. I had both Tyler Higbee and Ryan Tannehill queued up, and you just made my pick a lot easier by taking one of them. So yeah, I took Ryan Tannehill. I took him in the last mock draft we did. I took him in one of the leagues that I play in as well. I'm just really high on him this year. He's got an additional weapon in that lineup with Julio Jones. And I'm hoping that the new offensive coordinator is not going to run the ball as much. Maybe he's going to start making Tannehill pass a lot more. That's just going to increase his value. And I mean, he has good foot speed as well. He can run outside the pocket. He can get you yards on the ground as well. He's pretty much the whole package, and you're getting him a lot later than guys like Justin Herbert and Aaron Rodgers. So I thought it was a value, and so I took him right there. And then I guess right after me, Laviska Shenault got picked, Washington defense. Then we moved to round 9 where Justin Tucker went off the board, as well as Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And then I was right back up at pick number 3. I grabbed Tyler Boyd. He was the highest available wide receiver on the board. Terry will tell you he's been reliable the past 2 or 3 seasons, always getting the targets. Obviously, with Jamar Chase getting a lot of drops, his projected target share might drop a little bit. As in terms of game plan, they don't want to be too reliant on him early on. So you'll definitely see a lot of work from Tyler Boyd, especially early on during the season. I mean, I'm drafting him as my wide receiver, 4 or 5. So I'm not heavily relying on him. He's more of a bench depth guy. So I felt really good taking him. And then Nate, you took the guy that I was debating with between him and Tyler Boyd. You took Kenny Golladay. I guess just talk to us about that pick.
Well, I guess he has a pretty high, I guess, projected total fantasy points this year, and he did get I think he got 11 fantasy points per game last year, and he's pretty consistently good. So I decided to pick him up.
Yeah, it looks like that Giants offense has a lot of injuries, so he might be getting worked a little bit more than expected. Obviously, when that lineup does get healthy, it might cap his upside, but still a solid pick where you took him. Mike, it looks like you doubled down on tight end. You took Noah Fant. I guess talk to us about that.
So I really like Noah Fant. When he's healthy, he's one of the best tight ends in the game. He's young, so he's coming up in the game. With Teddy Bridgewater now the quarterback, there's going to be a lot of small passes to a tight end just because Teddy Bridgewater is a game kind of manager. So I think Noah Fant has a lot of upside for a round 9 pick. And
I
like I
guess,
said, I'm just trying to add depth to my team. So depth to the tight end. If I need to, good matchup. I see him rolling. I'll put him in my flex spot.
yeah, I was just going to ask you, where do you see him in terms of targets on that team? There's a lot of mouths to feed there.
There's a lot of mouths to feed. And Sutton usually doesn't stay healthy. Judy's kind of sporadic. It depends on his matchup. But like I said, I think he's going to turn into Teddy's favorite kind of receiver just because small little passes, he can break tackles and he get easy catches, easy yards.
Yeah, I think you got to look out for him in the red zone. That's where Noah Fant's going to be the most effective. That's where he was the most effective last season. So you definitely want to keep an eye on that. Terry, you went next. You took Matty Stafford as your quarterback. Talk to us about that.
Build up all the skill positions. Might as well get the floor general or field general or whatever you want to call him. You took Ryan Tannehill, so I'm thinking might as well pick up the next available quarterback, and that was Matthew Stafford. Honestly, I feel like he's going to have a better year compared to his years on the Lions. He has better options. Cooper Kupp, I believe Robert Woods, Van Jefferson, and you got the speedy Deshaun Jackson, or formerly Speedy. So better options, better city, better chance of putting up better stats.
Yeah, I think you got sniped from Matthew Stafford our last mock draft, so you were able to land him this time. Mete, you went at pick number 7. You grabbed Michael Gallup. Dallas Cowboys, obviously. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so this is my first and only Cowboys player I picked. And like I said, I was trying to be unbiased. And at this point, I'm just looking for best available. And I think for round 9, Gallup is a solid pick. Cowboys are turning more into a passing offense. And with Dak back, I think he's going to have an even better season than last year.
Yeah, that's just assuming with all these injuries he's dealing with that he can hopefully stay healthy. That's definitely something we want to look out for. Right after him, Joe Burrow went, and then Mike Williams, Tony Pollard, Harrison Butker, and Irv Smith Jr. Surprisingly, I'm pretty sure he's out for most of the season. I have no idea why someone decided to draft him, but anyways. Let's get to round 10 now. San Francisco defense went off the board. Zach Moss, Marvin Jones, Yohe Koo, and Baltimore defense went off the board. Mete, you were next. You took Devin Singletary. So talk to us about that pick.
Yeah, so like I said, with my Mike Davis pick, I feel like after round 10, it's just a bunch of backup running backs. And honestly, at this point, it's not even 100% if Singletary is the starter, but I'm just going on based off last year and depth charts. And since he's the starter, I decided to go with Singletary here.
Yeah, he did look good in the preseason. The only problem is that Buffalo just decides not to run the ball a lot outside of Josh Allen. So we'll definitely have to see how much they do that this year. Terry, you went right after him, taking DJ Chark. Talk to us about that pick.
So a majority of the time when the Jacksonville wideouts are being drafted, it usually goes Shark and then either 2A being Viscous Chanel Jr. or 2B being Marvin Jones Jr. If I get Shark as that third wideout between the core 3, I feel like I'm getting a decent steal, even though I only expect one of these guys to do great in the offense. It's really not a gamble due to the fact that he's my second bench wideout. So just take best available. Well, not best available, but let's see if the gamble pays off if this is the case.
Yeah, I think he was going as the main wideout out of that trio, but it looked like he fell to sort of the third guy there. Chenault went like 2 rounds earlier, and then Marvin Jones went earlier in the round. So yeah, it looks like you might be getting a steal there. Mike, getting to you, took Jalen Waddle. I guess talk about that pick.
So after round 10, I kind of just try to look for like players who have really good value who can kind of blow up the scene and kind of create something that you guys won't really find in round 10s, 11s, and the later rounds. So I went with Waddle just because everything out of camp, they're saying the Miami team is basically saying he's an instant impact player. Coming out of the draft, they were saying he's Tyreek Hill 2.0. So I don't see why not take the risk and try to get Waddle. And there's just a crazy amount of upside with him.
Yeah, he seems like that kind of dump off into the slot type guy, and then he can sort of create after the catch. And it seems to be what Tua needs to sort of get him going. So, yeah.
And with the Dolphins, like Devontae Parker was their number one, but he's always got injury problems. So he's ready to fill in that wide receiver one spot right away.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He definitely has the opportunity in front of him. Nate, you went next. You took Kenyon Drake. I guess just talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I guess now I wanted to, pick up a running back, but I guess at this point, there aren't really a lot of stars left, as Mete said. So I went with Kenyon Drake. He is a backup, but I think he's pretty decent. So yeah, I picked him up.
Yeah, he should be getting a lot of work. That Raiders team, they like to run, and if they don't run him, he'll be the pass catching guy. So you'll still be getting a decent upside from him. Yeah, Mike, like you said, you look for guys around 10 and later that have upside. So I went with Michael Pittman Jr. It looks like with that T.Y. Hilton injury, he's going to sort of be the main guy there, the X receiver for them. He sort of had a mini breakout at the end of last year. Hopefully he can translate that to the full season this year. He's still really young. I believe it's his second season. And yeah, if Carson Wentz sort of locks into him as his main guy, I guess just look out. He's got the mold of a number one receiver for a team. He's a big guy. He can sort of run after the catch. He can make contested catches. He seems like a guy that's ready to fill in that role. So I like him there, sort of a breakout. Right after me, Marquise Hollywood Brown got taken. Jamal Williams went. That's the end of round 10. We moved to round 11 now. Sony Michel went off the board. Tony Jones Jr. Then I was up at the third pick for round 11. I went Jonnu Smith. He's my starting tight end. I waited till round 11 to grab a tight end just because I didn't really like a lot of the options ahead of him. It looks like Jonnu's ready for a breakout year as well. He didn't really get the usage in Tennessee. I feel like in New England, yeah, he's going to get a lot more usage. We don't know how much Hunter Henry's going to factor in because he was injured for most of the preseason. But as of right now, it looks like Jonnu Smith is going to be the guy. And it looks like they're willing to run 2 tight end sets. So I'm confident that he'll be getting a lot of work. So I liked him there. Nate, you were the next pick. You took Kirk Cousins at 4th. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I guess I wanted to pick up, a backup quarterback at this point. And Kirk Cousins is pretty consistent. So I ended up going with him.
Honestly, for a backup, you just want a solid guy that can fill in for bye weeks. So it's pretty straightforward there. Mike, you up next. You took Denver defense. Talk about that.
Yeah, so it's just important to me to get a high-level defense. I know some people don't value the defense as much. I like kind of getting a top 3 defense. So Washington was off the board, and I really have high hopes for the Denver Broncos defense this year. And like I said, it's just important to me to get a defense. I don't have to sit there and worry about it for the rest of the year.
Yeah, like you were saying, there's like 2 different strategies. Either you like sit on that high level defense, or you can kind of play the waiver wire week to week for matchups. But then if you're in a league where a lot of people are doing that, then you get into that issue with not being able to get a team with a good matchup. So yeah, there's definitely different strategies to that. Terry, you were up next. Jarvis Landry off the board. Talk to us about that pick.
It's available wideout, I believe. He's the safety blanket for that quarterback down in Cleveland for what's his name again?
Baker Mayfield. Yeah.
Thank you, Baker Mayfield. My bad. Yeah, safety blanket, as I said, with Odell Beckham Jr. being wideout 1. I feel like Jarvis is that secure wideout 2. And I feel like Kareem Hunt's just that guy in the backfield that can be there just in case those 2 guys aren't open. And it's a juggling contest between Njoku, Hooper, and whoever else is at their tight end down in Cleveland. So might as well take a safety blanket.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you're relying on him too heavily. He's more of like a bench player. You can throw him into your lineup if you need him. But other than that, it's just pretty much depth at this point. Another depth piece went off the board to Mete. You took Matt Ryan. I guess talk to us about that.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like this is more than a depth piece for me. Like I said with my Jalen Hurts pick, I have high hopes for him, but since he only started 4 games, he's a risky pick. So I was thinking of Matt Ryan or Trevor Lawrence here, but I mean, if I go Trevor Lawrence, I have two risky quarterbacks. So yeah, I had to play it safe, and just in case something doesn't work out with Hurts, I have Matt Ryan, who I trust.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely want to play that risky hand with something safer behind it. So definitely a solid pick there. Right after you, Mike Gesicki off the board, Tampa Bay Bucks defense, Cleveland defense, Will Fuller, and Greg Zerline off the board. And then we moved to round 12, where Trevor Lawrence went off the board, Philip Lindsay, Tyler Bass, Darnell Mooney, and Naeem Hines. So Mete, you were up next at the 6th pick. You went Jacoby Myers. Talk to us about that pick.
Yeah, this is like you guys said, a guy I'm thinking of who can have a big breakout year. I feel like he's gonna be one of the best receivers for New England. So yeah, honestly, not much else to say. Just hoping for the best with him.
Yeah, you're definitely looking for those guys that can sort of become number ones on their team. I know Mike talked about Jalen Waddle. I talked about Mike Pittman, and now you talk about Jacoby Myers. Those are like three guys that we're sort of projecting that can become number one. So definitely important to take shots on them in later rounds. And then Terry, you were off the board next. You took Mark Ingram. I guess talk to us about that.
If I'm looking for a starter in the late rounds, might as well go Mark Ingram. Don't really need to say that much. He's my running back 5 on my team. I got guys ahead of him like Ronald Jones, Edmonds, Jones, and Gibson. Not really stressing that much about it. Outside of that, I mean, it's a what's the saying? Little gamble for a large upside. I don't know. What's the saying? If you guys want to help me out, be my guest. But you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, Mike, do you know what he's trying to say?
I got no idea.
Yeah,
What's the win rate, man? Come on, help
I
me.
thought he had something, but yeah, no, I get what you're trying to say. It's a low risk, large reward.
High reward, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So that's sort of what you're trying to say. Yeah, understandable that backfield is pretty muddy. The other two guys went off the board, like you said. Might as well take a shot on that third guy. I mean, Ingram has been getting most of the touches in the preseason, so you do have a pretty good shot in getting a starting running back there. So you might as well go for that gamble. And then I'll get to you next, Mike. You took Ryan Suckup. I guess just talk about what happened there.
I suck. That's what happened. No, my PC just glitched up and I froze. So it was an auto draft. I wouldn't usually take a kicker that high, but yeah, whatever it happens.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay, they can score. And if your league counts extra points, that was a good pick. If they don't count extra points, then you're probably not going to be getting a lot of
this man's not going to see the field much.
Yeah.
This man's not going to see the field much.
Yeah, so hopefully the league is a PAT league, and then you'll get some decent points. But anyways, Nate, we'll move to you. You had the next pick. You took Curtis Samuel. Talk to us about that.
I guess at this point, I'm just trying to, I guess, not necessarily like round out my roster, but just try to get some more players that I think might be good off the bench. So I thought maybe I'll just take a chance on Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, I mean, new team. He's moving there as sort of that like second wide receiver, possibly behind Terry McLaurin. So especially if he gets that rushing work that he had in Carolina last year, he should have some good fantasy value. So it's important to take those kind of shots on those players. And then I had the 10th pick in round 12. I went Gerald Everett from Seattle. All reports out of camp is that he has a really good connection with Russell Wilson, and that's important, especially since I waited so long to grab my first tight end. Might as well grab a good guy behind Jonnu Smith, and Gerald Everett's going to sort of be that guy for me, so I'm pretty happy with that. Right after me, Robbie Gould went off the board. Then Ryan Fitzpatrick. We moved to round 13, where Evan Ingram went off the board, Marquez Callaway. And then I had the third pick in round 13. I went with Trey Lance. And the reason I went with him is because this guy, I mean, if he somehow becomes a starting quarterback, no matter how early, he has every tool in the bag to become a top 12 fantasy quarterback. He's got the large arm. he's got the legs to be able to run and gain yards. And in that San Francisco offense, I mean, it's pretty much just going to explode at that point. It's just an upside sort of pick. I already have Ryan Tannehill. I'm not worried. This is sort of a breakout guy that can sort of surpass anything Tannehill's already doing for my team. And I mean, I'm taking him in like the third last round, so I don't really need to stress over that. So yeah, I decided to take Trey Lance. Nate, you went fourth right after me. You took Boston Scott. Talk about that.
So I guess I want to get another running back just in case I need another one. So I guess I just decided to take a chance on Boston Scott because he had pretty high projected I guess total fantasy points this year.
Yeah, he looked good in the preseason too. So it looks like he shouldn't lose his role as the backup there. So you definitely got a solid player. Mike, you went with McCole Hardman next pick.
Yeah, so he's either going to be a boom or bust kind of guy. If like Tyreek Hill goes down or Kelsey goes down, there's going to be a lot of looks for him. He's just an explosive player with a lot of upside, and he's been tweeting all about wide receiver 2, wide receiver. Like he's pumped to be a wide receiver 2. So like I'm gonna take that all the time. So,
Yeah, might as well take another shot on one of these guys. You don't need to start him. He's just one of those guys that you can just throw into your flex if he pops off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Then Terry, getting to you. This guy tried to tilt me a little bit, taking New England defense. Talk about that.
Honestly, it's the last 3 rounds. This is where most of the running backs and wideouts that you're wanting or projecting to do good or great become, a disappearing act, and they go to another team. So at this rate, I'm thinking, let me just take a defense in this third last round. Defenses behind New England were honestly teams like Indianapolis and who else was there? Kansas City that went in rounds 14, and then rounds 15, probably anything else after that. So might as well take a defense that's getting a lot of people that are coming back from the COVID riddle season. Plus, they just revamped the whole entire defense. So I'll take the team with the highest upside at this rate.
Yeah, definitely a solid pick. Definitely something I would have taken if they had fallen to me as well. So definitely, I like what you did there. Mete, getting to you, you took Austin Hooper. Talk about that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I like the point that Michael made after round 10. Just go for upside. And Hooper, I feel like he's at the peak of his career, and he's playing in Cleveland where they're really run heavy. So now that I think about it, it's not the greatest pick. Could have gone for a guy like Cole Kmet who could have a great breakout. But yeah, I guess it's round 13, and I need a backup tight end. So yeah, Austin Hooper.
Yeah, I mean, if there's another injury in that offense, he'll probably play really well like he did last season. The only issue is that you're sort of relying on that injury. I don't know whether he's going to have that week-to-week value, but yeah, other than that, he's just your backup. There's nothing you really need to worry about. After you, Matt Gay went off the board, Jason Myers, Baker Mayfield, and then Cole Kmet, like you mentioned, then Hunter Henry after him. And then we moved to round 14, the second last round. Michael Thomas went off the board, Justin Fields, Rob Gronkowski, Jared Cook, Ben Roethlisberger, and then Mete, you went and took defense. You grabbed Indianapolis. Talk about that.
Yeah, at this point, I just need a kicker and defense, and I usually like to go defense first. And yeah, I think Indianapolis is the best defense available, so I just went with them.
Yeah, I grabbed them around the same spot in our last mock draft. Surprised they were available so late. Definitely a solid pick. They're definitely going to be solid, whether it's at the line or in the secondary. So I definitely like that pick. Terry, you were after him at the 7th pick. You went Henry Ruggs. Talk about that pick.
I wouldn't say a sleeper, but he's wide out one on the Oakland Raiders. So might as well go with the guy that's going to get the second most targets after Darren Waller. Ruggs is my guy when it comes to that.
I'm actually surprised that he's been going that late in drafts still, even after John Brown leaving the team. So I think you definitely got a really solid steal there. Mike, you were next. You took Alex Madison. Talk about that.
Yeah, so from my last 2 rounds, I kind of like have a role for myself where it's just like two guys you can kind of drop easily for like hot waiver wire people. So Madison, I just took just because Dalvin Cook goes down. Madison, you plug into that system, and he's going to be your RB1 very easily.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. You definitely want those like easily droppable players that if they don't fit into the system, you can just grab someone off the waiver week 1 or whatever. And then, yeah, you mentioned about handcuffs. Handcuffs are great. You target those run heavy offenses and you draft the handcuffs and hope that they get playing time. We noticed that a lot last year, especially with guys like Mike Davis and Kareem Hunt. They were backups and they got a lot of work. So it definitely works out a lot of the time. Second last round, Nate, you went with a kicker, Daniel Carlson. I guess pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I guess last 2 rounds, kicker and defense.
Yep, definitely a solid strategy. I went with Kansas City defense. I was looking at either New England or Indianapolis. They both went off the board. I didn't want to reach. So I'm okay taking Kansas City. They don't allow a lot of points. They'll get the occasional sack or interception. We saw that with them against Buffalo in the playoffs last year. The defense was really solid. They didn't lose too many pieces off that defense as well. So I definitely think they're a solid pick even in the second last round. After me, Daniel Jones off the board, Elijah Moore off the board. Then we moved to round 15, final round. LA Chargers defense, Blake Jarwin off before me. I pick at number 3. I was going to take a kicker, but I mean, I can always, drop someone and just grab a kicker before week 1. So I decided to go for another upside play. I went with Mac Jones. They announced he was starting at quarterback for the Patriots to start the year. They cut Cam Newton. Cam Newton would have been another sleeper player you can take a gamble on, but obviously he's not on a team. So yeah, grab Mac Jones. Obviously, if Trey Lance doesn't start, then maybe I get some value from Mac Jones. If not, I can just drop one of them to the waiver and pick up whether it's a kicker, whether it's another hot free agent. So definitely something that I thought about there. Nate, you went after me. You took Saints defense. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I guess there weren't too many defenses that really stood out, but there were a few that I think were pretty solid, and I think New Orleans defense is one of them. So I decided to take them.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. Their defense is really going to have to carry them to a solid record if they're going to make the playoffs this season. I think that's definitely one of their strong suits. So solid pick there, even in the final round. Mike, you took Jameis Winston. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I just needed a backup quarterback. So I just had to make sure the bye weeks are different. And he's going to play 1 game for me. Hopefully his laser eye surgery is going to be fine and he won't cost me a week. So yeah, it's just a backup quarterback just in case my man goes down.
Yeah, I mean, for him, it's like 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, or anything in between. So
yeah, so depending on the league, I know like they penalize heavy for like interceptions and pick sixes. So just be careful. Be careful with if you draft one of the guys who have a high turnover ratio.
yeah, so one of the things is make sure you check the rules of your league before you draft, so you can sort of take advantage of that in your draft. That's definitely important. Terry, you drafted right after him, Jason Sanders, and he's a kicker.
Yeah, he's a kicker. Just take best available. If you know anything about kickers, I mean, good for you. Just take best available kicker if you're drafting him round 15.
Yeah, what I do know is that he was a Pro Bowler, so I mean, you didn't really go wrong there. And then Mete with your final pick, Rodrigo Blankenship, another kicker.
Yeah, respect the specs. I mean, like Terry said, it's the last round. I need a kicker, and honestly, you just need a guy who's not shanking a lot of kicks and who can kick the deep field goals, 40 plus, as they give you more points. So yeah, Rodrigo Blankenship, I feel like is that guy for me.
Yeah, honestly, when you're looking at a kicker, you're looking for volume. That's the main thing. And you want someone that's not going to be shanking kicks all the time because a lot of leagues penalize that as well. So another thing to take a look at. But yeah, and then right after you, Devontae Parker off the board, Chicago Bears defense, Buffalo Bills defense, Will Lutz and Miami Dolphins defense to round out the draft. So I'll start with myself, actually. I was the 3rd overall pick. For each of us, I guess I'll just go through, mention all the players on our team, talk about what we liked about our team and sort of what we were thinking going through the entire draft. And then Yahoo does give us a draft grade. I know it doesn't matter that much, but sort of just list it off and just your thoughts on that. So I guess I'll start. My draft grade, Yahoo gave me an A. Obviously, I don't read too much into that, but if Yahoo thinks I did well, and I also think I did well, so I'm happy with that. My team is in order: Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Hopkins, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Gus Edwards, Deontay Johnson, Brandon Ayuk, Kareem Hunt, Ryan Tannehill, Tyler Boyd, Michael Pittman Jr., Jonnu Smith, Gerald Everett, Trey Lance, Kansas City defense, and Mac Jones. Yeah, I am pretty happy with that. I got 3 RBs in the first 4 rounds. I got 3 wideouts in the first 6. So yeah, I'm solid in those 2 positions. Quarterback, I got 3 quarterbacks. So if Tannehill doesn't work out, I got 2 young guys with upside. 2 tight ends on the younger end in Jonnu Smith and Gerald Everett. Sort of expecting breakouts from both. So one of them should hit. I should definitely be okay there. And then I got a lot of depth. Tyler Boyd, Michael Pittman in the 9th and 10th rounds, respectively, are really solid for my wideout core. And I mean, Kansas City defense, if they don't play well, I can always just swap them out for someone off the waiver. So I am pretty happy with my team from the 3rd spot. Obviously, Nate, you went right after me at the 4th spot. So sort of talk about your team, your thoughts, and your grade.
So my grade was A minus. I'm pretty happy with that. I wish I could have gotten a little bit higher, but it doesn't really matter too much in the grand scheme of things. My team was Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Terry McLaurin, Cooper Kupp, Lamar Jackson, TJ Hawkinson, Jerry Jeudy, Tyler Higbee, Kenny Golladay, Kenyon Drake, Kirk Cousins, Curtis Samuel, Boston Scott, Daniel Carlson, and New Orleans defense. I guess in retrospect, maybe I didn't really need to take 2 tight ends that have, I guess, pretty high upside. I could have just gotten gone with TJ Hawkinson and then maybe wait till later in the draft, even though tight ends tend to get kind of thin.
Yeah, I guess what you could have done, maybe reached or waited for a guy further down that maybe had like breakout upside, and then maybe you could have filled out like another position. But honestly, I think you did pretty well overall with your team, so you don't need to fault yourself for that. And obviously, Yahoo didn't fault you too much for that either. Mike, I'll get to you. You're drafting right after the 5th spot. I guess talk about your team. We'll list your team, talk about it, and I guess the grade.
Yeah, so Yahoo was always on one, so they gave me a C minus. Ezekiel Elliott, Allen Robinson, James Robinson, Damian Harris, Kyler Murray, Odell, Juju, Dallas Goedert, Noah Fant, Jalen Waddle, Denver defense, Ryan Suckup, Mecole Hardman, Alexander Madison, and James Winston. Honestly, I really like my team. I got my wide receiver depth that I like. I got my running back depth that I like. And honest to goodness, as long as Odell Beckham Jr., Juju Smith kind of stay healthy and do what they're supposed to, and I hit on Goddard and Fant exceeding expectation and Damian Harris exceeding expectation, I'm pretty confident in my team.
Yeah, that's one thing Yahoo doesn't predict is a lot of breakouts. They sort of project players where they are. So if they gave you a low grade because you went for younger players, that's understandable.
That's usually what happens with my teams, just because like I took Waddle at the end, I took Hardman at the end, rather than taking like the highest rated player. I took guys who kind of have boom things. So like I said, if one of those guys hits and everybody kind of has stays their expectation, I'm pretty happy with my team.
Yeah, I think out of all the teams I've drafted, only like one of the top graded teams has like ever won the league. Most of the time it's someone somewhere in the middle in terms of draft grade that ends up winning. Because yet, like I said, Yahoo doesn't project those breakouts. If you sort of take a shot on a younger player, they don't really take that into account. So like I said, you don't need to worry about the draft grade too much, but we just kind of want to see, I guess, where Yahoo's going to place all of our teams. But Terry, I'll move to you next. You were at pick number 6. Walk us through your team. I guess explain your strategy and your draft grade.
At quarterback, Matthew Stafford. Wideout 1, Tyler Lockett. Wideout 2, Adam Thielen. Running back 1, Aaron Jones. Running back 2, Antonio Gibson. Tight end 1, George Kittle. Flex position, Chase Edmonds. Defense was New England Patriots. And the kicker was the one on the Dolphins, Jason Sanders. You get what I'm trying to go through. And on the bench, Ronald Jones II, Corey Davis, G.J. Sharp Jr., Jarvis Landry, Mark Ingram, and Henry Ruggs the fourth. Yahoo gave me a minus, B plus, something like that. I can understand why I didn't draft a quarterback or a second quarterback, and I didn't draft a second tight end. So honestly, I don't really care about the grade. It's what you do throughout the season that makes you win your championship. And about my team, I'll be lucky if DJ Chark blows up on the Jaguars offense. And honestly, if Mark Ingram becomes the 50-50 starter with Philip Lindsay or David Johnson, I wouldn't even be upset with those picks. With that being said, can't complain.
Yeah, you definitely went for some upside in those later picks. Obviously, that's definitely something you want to do when you're drafting. Probably don't need to think too much about it. If it doesn't work out, you can always drop them and grab someone off the waiver wire anyways. So that's not that big of a deal. But Mete, I'll get to you. You were picking from pick number 7. Go through your team and I guess explain all your picks and talk about your grade.
Yeah, so my team was Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Mark Andrews, Mike Davis, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Michael Gallup, Devin Singletary, Matt Ryan, Jacoby Myers, Austin Hooper, Indianapolis, and Rodrigo Blankenship. I got a B plus, and my thoughts on this team, honestly, like I said, Jalen Hurts is kind of risky, but I went with Matt Ryan, a guy I'm comfortable with. So I think I'm good there in case Hurts doesn't pan out. And then the second thing I was kind of mad about was Austin Hooper, but he was my 13th round pick. So yeah, I don't have too many complaints, honestly.
And what did Yahoo give you as a grade?
They gave me a B plus.
All right, that's not too bad then. You did pretty well. And I guess, yeah, like you mentioned, when you get into the draft, sometimes you take guys that you regret later, and that happens. That's what the waiver wire is for. If the guy doesn't pan out, and you can always just, whether you have waiver priority, whether you have different fab budgets or whatever it might be, you just got to prioritize that. You got to get the guys that you want off the waiver, and yeah, you're pretty much set. But yeah, I think overall in this mock draft, I guess I'll just give my final thoughts and I'll bounce it to you guys. I feel like with my team, like I was sort of able to get the guys that I wanted. They were able to fall to me, and I got a lot of values. Like I think that's why my grade was really high, is because I didn't really try and reach for too many guys until the later rounds. Like especially in earlier rounds, like Deontay Johnson just kind of like fell into my lap. Kareem Hunt, the same thing. He kind of just like fell into my lap. Like no one was taking him for like 5 straight picks. And then it just became a value at that point because I got him in a round later than he was projected. Yeah, things like that. Tannehill was another one of those guys. He had the COVID symbol beside his name. So people just probably stayed away from him, and I got him at a value. So those are a couple of things I noticed. I was just happy with my team in that sense. And I guess, Nate, I'll bounce it to you. Any final thoughts?
I not really too many final thoughts, I guess. I guess I can talk about tight ends a little bit again. I guess for maybe like early tight ends, like if you see someone like TJ Hawkinson and they fall to you, you should definitely pick them up. But once you pick somebody who's in the top 6 for tight ends, you don't really need to worry too much. Like for example, there was like Mike Gesicki, who was like after that. So if you see like someone like Tyler Higbee and you already took a top 6 tight end, just wait until you see someone like Mike Gesicki or someone after that.
Yeah, I feel like that. I know we've talked all year about there being 6 main tight ends that I guess if you don't grab them early, you sort of like should wait a little bit on tight end and try and get some value instead. I think that's what I did. I went with Jonnu Smith because I noticed that, like how quickly the top 6 went. Yeah, like you ended up getting Hawkinson. I think someone here took Kittle. I think Terry, that was you, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And then Mete went with Andrews, and then Mike waited a little bit. Also, he went with Fant and Goddard. So there's just two different strategies. If you're sort of reaching for guys in the middle, I think it was good, Mike, that you didn't reach for Logan Thomas. You sort of let the draft just fall to you, and then just sort of get him as a value. But I guess any final thoughts or any thought or any like draft thoughts when it comes to strategies?
Honestly, not too much. Like I said, running backs are the hardest position to kind of replace if someone goes down. So always make sure you have running back depth. Pray to the fantasy gods your team stays healthy, and then just work the waivers all year.
Yeah, it's one of those things you got to be on top of is the waiver wire, because if you have people in your league that are sharps and they're quick, they'll grab those breakout guys. Like after week 1, you're gonna find these wide receivers that went off for like 100 yards and like 2 touchdowns, and people are going to be all over them. But you got to look at the situation. You got to temper your expectations. Not every player that breaks out in the first week is going to sustain it for the whole season. And a lot of times there's injuries as well in week 1. So then there's people hopping on the waiver for backup running backs. So if you've drafted a lot of depth in terms of backups, you might end up having a backup running back for an injured player. And then that'll turn out to be something good for you in fantasy. You can always throw them into your starting lineup. Terry, I'll get to you now. Any final thoughts on drafting, or I guess draft strategies?
Draft strategies, I mean, you guys covered a tight end situation. If you're not drafting a Fab 5 plus that rookie, you're honestly picking from guys like Logan Thomas, Robert Toydan, Noah Fant, Mike Gesicki. So basically like that tier 2. If you're aiming for the tier 2 guys, don't aim for them early, because honestly, you're going to get roasted in your chat or whatever Yahoo's using during the draft. What else? I said it in our first mock draft. Understand the deepness for each position. Running backs and wideouts are the deeper positions. So if you can find those sleepers or those steals in the later round, be my guest. But also remember guys like, I don't know, if you're looking for that skilled quarterback like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, those running capable quarterbacks, you're going to have to pay early in the rounds for that. Outside of that, you got bye weeks. It shouldn't be that big of a deal breaker, but just keep in mind that if you got 4 or 5 guys that are sitting in week 15, you might be struggling for that playoff push. But outside of that, don't really got that much else to say.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that a lot. I honestly just consider bye weeks as like a deal breaker or like a tiebreaker. If I'm stuck between 2 players, I take the player that has a different bye week than the guys on my team already, so that you don't have to go through that hassle when the bye week comes and you got like 5 guys on your bench and you're running to the waiver wire just to get to someone to throw into your starting lineup. Especially if you're in deeper than 12-man leagues, like 14-man leagues, you're picking up like a Savon Ahmed off the waiver, or you're picking up like a Matt Breida or something just to try and throw into your lineup, and you don't want to be doing that. So it's definitely important to watch the bye weeks, but obviously don't reach lower for a guy just because he's a different bye week. Obviously just use that as sort of a tiebreaker between 2 players. Mete, getting to you, I guess, any final thoughts on this draft or just drafts in general?
Yeah, so like I said in the first mock draft, definitely try not to be biased towards your own team. I tried doing that this draft, and I think I achieved that. I only had 1 Cowboys player. So yeah, I know you're gonna be really tempted to pick players you really like. So yeah, try to stop yourself from doing that, especially if there's way better picks. Outside of that, like we said, running backs, I feel like you really need 2 by the first 5 rounds at least. Yeah, outside of that, for your bench, you could probably just try to go for breakouts, especially if you're confident in your starters. Yeah, you have nothing to lose, as if you're confident in your guys, you can just have breakout candidates, and yeah, you could definitely use them for flex or stuff like that, better matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about it going into drafts. I mean, if you like your player, obviously you want to draft them because you don't want to be let's just say if you're a Cowboys fan, you're stuck between Amari Cooper and Terry McLaurin, and you take Terry McLaurin and you find yourself cheering against the Cowboys. Obviously, you don't want to do that. So yeah, players that are close to each other, obviously you want to take the player that you like, but yeah, like Mete said, don't be reaching for players from your own team. Obviously, go for the more skilled player. You want to get a well-rounded team. I know, Terry, you were talking about that as well, rounding out your team, knowing the depth of each position. And then, yeah, we've talked about draft strategies the whole off season. We got episodes on everything, whether it's team previews, whether it's judging between positions, whether it's just judging between specific players, which players have more upside. And this is the second mock draft now. So we've done more than one mock draft. Make sure you do your research. We have all the tools here for you. We're definitely here to help. Obviously, you can tweet at us, you can DM us, you can leave us a comment. Obviously, leave us a comment who you think had the best draft, whoever that might be. Talk to us about your draft strategies, all that. And that's going to be the end of this Fanatics football episode. Make sure you check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Fan Podcast. The football picks will be coming up next week to start the season. Make sure if you want your picks, our experts are going through every single game to provide winners for you guys. So definitely check that out. This podcast episode will be on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, click the bell for notifications on YouTube, leave us comments, reviews, all that good stuff. Mike, it was great having you back on the episode. Appreciate it.
Nice to be back. I appreciate it. You having me back, man.
And the rest of you guys as well. And we'll talk to you guys on the next episode.